Hello friends! Welcome to another Artist Alley Tips video. Today we're going to talk about how to table at a convention when you are by yourself. When I do a convention, I always try my best to have at least one helper help me out, but sometimes there just isn't anyone available to help. It's definitely tough to do it on your own, but here are some tips on how to make the task easier. First thing to consider is your travel arrangements. Depending on what convention you go to, you will likely have to make a decision between driving or flying there. So which should you pick? If the convention is super far away, maybe 6+ hours, you might want to consider flying to the convention if you don't feel confident in your long-distance driving abilities. Consider the stress of driving long distances in regards to your sleep. You will want to be at your best, and if you're too exhausted from driving, you may find yourself unable to stay awake during the convention. Not to mention, driving when you're too tired is incredibly dangerous, and your safety is of the utmost importance. One trick that I do is that if the distance is longer than 6 hours, I take a hotel break near the halfway point of my trip. In my experience, the cost of this hotel break tends to still be cheaper than a plane ticket. This is particularly important for someone who may be unable to start driving until after work hours. If you don't have time limitations such as this, you may be able to make the drive in one sitting. But you may find that taking a flight to the convention is the best option, especially if you have to go a great distance. One thing you'll have to consider, though, is how to get your merchandise to the convention with you. With driving, you can just take whatever fits in the trunk of your car, but with flying, usually there is a limit to how much you can bring with you. For example, when I've flown to conventions in the past, aside from carry-on luggage, I'm typically allowed one checked-in luggage that is under 50 pounds for free. Any more luggage than that, I have to pay a fee for. Plane tickets on their own can be a bit pricey, so you'll have to consider how much profit you'll be making at the convention you're going to. That can go into paying for tickets and extra luggage. And on that note, let's talk a little bit more about luggage. You are the only person who is going to be carrying this luggage, so you will need to consider things like the number and weight of luggage and how you plan to transport it inside the convention. At some larger conventions, you're allowed to use a loading dock that is usually connected to the room where the Artist Alley is located, which definitely helps with unloading. However, some smaller conventions don't have loading docks, and so you will have to be able to unload from your car and navigate through the building to your table. That may mean you're taking multiple trips back and forth. So you'll have to consider, how many of those trips are you able to make? How heavy of items can you carry through a building? If you have lots of bulky, heavy items, you might want to buy yourself a collapsible push cart or flatbed cart that you can load up with your items to make transportation easier. Otherwise, you might want to limit the amount of stuff you bring with you. For example, one of the times I flew to a convention, I limited myself to 2 suitcases so that I could carry everything in one trip. While I usually do sell apparel, I limited how much I brought with me because apparel is incredibly heavy in large quantities. For that convention, I focused more on selling prints because I was able to bring much more of them since they are very lightweight. If you do have a lot of items, especially apparel or books, that you need to have at the convention to sell, you could also consider having them shipped to the convention you're going to, or have them shipped to the hotel or other residence you will be staying at. I personally have zero experience with shipping my products to a convention, and I've heard mixed things about doing this, so I cannot give much advice. If you're watching this video and you have experience with shipping your items to a convention, please leave a comment with your advice. Now let's move on to table number and setup. At the actual Artist Alley table itself, you should consider how you will run the table on your own. You might want to stick with only having one table because it will be much easier to oversee. You'll be able to much more easily keep up with customers and check on your inventory in a smaller space. You'll want to set up your table in such a way that you're able to have a good view outward. It's easy to want to display everything possible on your table, but you're the only person who is looking after your things, so you'll need to have a clear view of your merch. Lastly, it's important to consider self-care during this time. You need to be able to make sure you are well-fed, well-rested, and in general good health during the convention. It's hard to get away from your table when you're the only one running it, but it's very important to make sure you get good meals in and take small breaks. I recommend you stocking up on good snacks that you can eat throughout the convention, like dried fruit, granola bars, sandwiches, water, and more. Try to avoid having a ton of overly sugary items because you may crash in the later convention hours. You can also take stock of what food options are available at the convention. Lots of larger conventions have many food stalls and concession stands set up throughout, and you can grab something from them during your break. If you need to take a food break, bathroom break, or just need to walk around and stretch your legs, don't be afraid to ask your artist neighbors to keep a watchful eye over your table. Other artists are in the same situation as you are, and usually don't mind keeping an eye out if you ask. You can also ask the convention staff if they may be able to help watch your table as you take a break. And that's all for this topic. If you have any questions about what we discussed in this video, please feel free to leave a comment. Or, if you have a suggestion for what you would like to see covered in a future video, also leave your comment. Until next time, have a great day!